Welcome back. You're watching Siasa Fiesta here on Morning Prime. It is 7 o'clock on the nose. I'm holding court this morning with Kibrito Arab Kirwa, who is a politician. Also, we have Dr. James Chikal, who is a member of parliament for Semen. We have as well Isaac Moura, who is a politician. We were expecting for Dr. Boni Haloli to join us as well. It's 7 o'clock on the nose. I doubt if he'll make it. If he does, we'll continue pace with the conversation. And we're trying to look at a lot of issues here on the show. And the current state of play, as we know it right now, is with the MPs' salaries as it is right now. And we've not heard the thoughts of Kibrito Arab Kirwa since this debate came to the fore. So before he took a short break, he had frustrations with the new administration. During his AD, he says, of course, there were a lot of trappings around this particular seat of an MP. But right now, a lot has been padding around member of parliament. I could see even the MCA sometimes they were asking even for some allowances for their girlfriends, if I may remember right.
The bar, sure.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It is true. I remember from Badelis we were reading that some MCAs they were also pushing the envelope that even the allowances for their girlfriends. So it seems the taxpayer has to really make
and stretch
for the children they get I'll correct that.
You correct it, okay.
So I was at the level of comparing the salary of an MP, what he takes home, what comes through his payslip, and what is the cost of maintaining an MP, both at the constituency and at the national level. And I think it is good for us to be dispassionate so that we do not condemn these individuals without really doing serious audit of what does it mean to have an MP in a certain constituency before you add the issues of CDF. Then now you cascade down to issues of CDF, the committees that are involved in management of CDF and so forth. Now, I had the benefit of the wisdom of Dr. Chikal that some of these individuals, if you are to do an audit, let's say for a certain sample of MPs, for let's say 10 years, for those who will survive for 10 years, then you do an audit even beyond 5 years after they leave parliament. I've been out of parliament now for the last 15 years. What is their life like? Are they still able to do the things they were doing? What is the residual benefit do they have out of serving in that particular position for a certain period? Now, the second issue is an audit of government officers, right from the permanent secretary or the principal secretary all the way down to the junior officer. What is the money that costs us to run an office of, let's say, PS environment, because we are talking about issues of environment today. So that we once we do that audit, it will inform us both in terms of human resource and financial resource. And finally, what is the audit of various devolved units? Do we need to have 10 ministers, or they call CECs in every county? Do we need to have about 15 CEOs in those counties? How can we try to rationalize these positions so that when we are talking of the wage bill, is the total wage bill, we just don't focus on politicians? Because I think it is popular to bash a politician, but it's not popular to be realistic. I'm saying so because the current administration is trying to balance between what is possible and what is available, or what they projected in their campaigns and what is available. What is available, in my opinion, is what we are calling 35% of all the collectible revenue. That is to meet the salaries, to meet the development, and to meet all the other aspirations. Finally, on that particular issue, what is the cost of every project, like the SGR? When we reverse from Naivasha to Mombasa, what are we telling Kenyans? How are we going to pay for that particular project? We need to be very realistic. I remember during the time I was young, there was a seminar in Kenya Institute of Administration that leaders went for a whole week, and they were talking passionately how to be able to roll out programs in the district focus for rural development. Can we have a national conversation without thinking of the parties, whether you are Azimio or Kenya Kwanza? We say, okay, this is our country. how do we move forward for the next 5 years? Those are my thoughts that really frustrate me when you listen to leaders, what they were saying before the campaign, what they are saying now. The language has shifted, and you can almost know in the next 5 years, some of the promises, not half of them, less than half will have been fulfilled. The rest of it will be explained that they were notable because of 1, 2, 3.
But they'll come back to you and say this was just a campaign rhetoric. You don't take it seriously. Yeah, so you'd be very valuable for you to take it very seriously. This is just rhetoric. This is what we normally talk during campaigns.
Yeah, but you see, as a student of leadership, we are made to believe in what we say. If you say what you don't believe in, then that is failure of leadership. And that's the main problem with Africa. We should not say it is campaign rhetoric. Whatever you say as a leader, you must be held accountable. That's why when the president is sworn under this constitution, is for him to be held accountable. That you promised us 1, you never gave us 2. You promised us 3, you gave us 1. We measure you by what you profess. Otherwise, then who are we going to believe in future? Yeah, that's my frustration.
Right. Let's hear from Manikal.
Let me start from that the campaign is rhetoric. It is that rhetoric, or what we are calling rhetoric, is the basis on which somebody gets to power and then has the control of resources, the security of people under them, and the well-being. So if it is mere rhetoric, then people shouldn't use it to make a decision. They do. So people must be taken to account. And it behoves us, politicians, to measure, even during the campaign, pleasing people to get the votes and what you will eventually do. Because if they are so different, because they say, that was rhetoric, that was campaign, then it is con job. You are cheating the people ab initio, as the lawyers would put it. I'm not one. From the very beginning, you are cheating them. So we must be taken to task for the things we say. I think that I just wanted to correct that, because my worry about it is actually sometimes you get the impression that people go to campaign, they are very popular, they say very nice things. When they get into positions, you actually get the impression that they are stranded. They are now stranded with the power because it is virtually impossible to translate what they said into what the people need. I think it should also, our public expositions, whether it's campaign, an element of it should be teaching. So I will make people know that as much as this is popular, in my constituency I do it. I tell people that we cannot do, and that I shall not do. Because after 10 years now, they actually seem to appreciate that this person, when he says he'll do it, he does it, or visibly tries to do it. If he says he doesn't do it, eventually so it isn't. So I think it's very important what we say. But let me come to the issue of the salaries of members of parliament. The politicians, elected people, they represent the society in everything, including the ills, the beliefs, the bad behaviors of the society. It is represented in there. So what you find of the bashing of MPs is the general state in the country, the situation in the country, that there is an element of ill feeling, and it's understandable that when people seem to be getting something more, it's not a feeling of, it's okay, it's good for him, it's good for all us. You begrudge them. So there's an element of begrudging. But the reality of it is, I would go by what he said, audit. First of all, audit the life of politicians. Elected people, they have the roles of legislation, oversight, and those are done in a structured way. Legislation is structured, oversight is also fairly structured, how you do it. But when you come to representation and you go to the life of an MP in his constituency, it's amazing because people see you as everything. And actually, you are part of it, because when they vote for you, this is the person they know. And they come to you for everything. When a kid doesn't go to school, when a woman has delivered and is stuck in hospital, somebody is sick, there's a funeral, a body can't be retrieved, there is a rambe for somebody going overseas, and so on. So the life, or I don't want to call it the lifestyle, but the life structure of an MP is extremely, extremely expensive. And really, we should do the audit and say, what does it cost a person to be an MP? If you take other government offices like, say, a PS, there are actually funds that are available that when people come to see you, the tea they take is actually accounted for. It's not yours. If you are going to organize some function, public participation, that is actually accounted for. If you have guests which are coming on government function at office level, or if you are launching something and entertaining them, that is accounted for. Now, with the MP, with the politicians, that is not there. And there is also an element in the country we should look at. When I was a member of parliament, even more so when I was in private practice, I had a lot more money than I have now. I didn't see people coming to me to ask for money. When I became an MP, even when you get into a supermarket, the security of the guard says, iko baridi sana mheshimiwa. Baridi namna gani? Ziingie ndani. You need some chai. So they start giving, and I think we have also not been strong enough to sometimes say no. So the expenditure of an MP is really amazing. And that's why, as he was saying, we should audit the lifestyle. When people get in, what is their socioeconomic status, particularly those who are also not big-time businessmen, who are going to politics, either to protect it or as a general achievement in their life. Now they have made it, they want to be an MP. What is their life when they get in and when they get out? The truth is, many times, people who are well like him must have been well organized. But many times, when you look at many people after politics, they are actually paupers. And how come, if they were getting so much money, and at the end of it, they are paupers? These are people who are either good professionals, good businessmen, and they were organized. How come they were so disorganized that with so much money, at the end of their life, things are like this? That needs to be audited and taken into consideration. The other issue that he brought in, compared to other people in civil service, let me take the level of a PS, for example. I'm talking about what I know. We actually, the MPs actually get less. Take the issue of cars. Everybody is now saying, okay, MPs want allowance or car allowance, or they're given money, car grant. Let's say it's car grant.
It's a car grant.
What is it? It's 5 million.
7.5 million.
It's 7.5 million. Now, but if you look at the kind of cars that actually the MPs need, they need a big four-wheel drive, not as a show of force, but what they do, they are off-road vehicles. If they would be equivalent of a Land Rover or a big pickup that the DCs use. Because if you look at the lifestyle, the work of an MP when it's in the rural areas, they go everywhere, just like the DC. Now, you give them this 7.5. What do we do with the other people, say the PS? We actually buy a car. Now, if you want to buy, say, a Prado, will you get it, a brand new one with 7.5 million? No. You are talking of 10, 15 million. But for the MPs, it is 7.5. People make a lot of noise. Now, for the MP, again, when you give and you get that car, actually you maintain it, you pay insurance,
No, you have maintenance. You're given maintenance there of 335,000.
Yeah,
so it's not you who's maintaining.
But you will then go down
and given maintenance allowance.
But you will go down and look at what is the basic salary. It is something around 300. So when they put the maintenance, it comes to about 700. Now you are there. Yes.
Yes.
Now they're going to compare you.
Is in the 700,000 and the maintenance of it there. You have also the house allowance at 150,000.
Which is now.
No.
Look at the house allowance. Look at the house allowance. You remember that when the house allowance was put last time, it was actually a proposal of 250. It was agreed. It was actually reduced. And people who actually obtained it, actually it was deducted. It was recovered.
But
so now,
Dr. Nikal, you tell me, what is the rhyme and reason for you to get 150,000 still? And also you're servicing a mortgage. How much you given for a mortgage? So you have this 150,000 as a house allowance and still you're servicing a mortgage.
Let me tell you, when you have a mortgage is a loan. Today, you, Dibal, if despite what your employer has given you, as you are maybe it will be say a consolidated salary, in there's a house allowance, isn't it? Or the money you will use to pay for your house. If you then choose to take a mortgage, that mortgage, the facility is what you have, but the mortgage, you pay all of it. And let me tell you, that mortgage for MPs, you pay it within 5 years.
Months, yeah.
So it limits even the amount. But let me go to it.
But at what rate are you paying this particular amount? It's not even the market rate.
That's okay.
I think you are highly favored, you MPs in this country.
No, let me just...
At 3%. At 3% for a mortgage you have 5 years.
It's the same case for other government officials. It's not just...
It's everybody else. Yeah. So now let me because you are cutting me quick. I said, you jumped into house. I was still in the one of a car. If you are going to buy a car for a PS, it will be brand new.
Yeah.
It will be 15 million.
Yeah.
It will have, they'll pay no insurance. If he moves around with the driver, it will be fueled. If he moves around with the driver and the security, the per diem, there's a per diem for the driver and the security. Unfortunately for MPs, and he'll tell you, even now, there is, if I get a security from the police, they give him a little lump sum on top, but after that, they give him nothing. Now, when I move around with him to go to meetings, I actually pay for his accommodation. So if people went down, and that is the big thing between the MPs and SRC, SRC is not going into these details. So that if you go into actual details and compare the MPs with people in the same level, you will find that actually the expenditure on them is less than the expenditure on people on the other side. That's really the truth. Even the management of my constituency office, if you look at the money that they get to manage my constituency office, and you then even compare with the money that's available for the management of even a director in a ministry, it's actually less. So people have not gone into the details. People have looked at the money. Last time I argued, let us not ask for this car grant. Let them just buy a car, maintain it, employ the driver, the security. When we go out, they pay their per diem like they do for the other officers. And when we leave them with the car.
Yeah.
The cost will be much, much higher. Now, when we come to house allowance, this money was actually consolidated. I think it was in the last term that was an attempt to bring a house allowance. And they moved fast, and I think the procedure was not followed, and it was paid. That money was recovered. The one that is proposed now hasn't even been implemented. So that consolidated money that you saw, you are looking on, and then you brought in the car maintenance, I'll agree. But if you look at how much frequently you use the car, then you find that in the end, if all were taken together, actually what I would have liked, everything we do, let's put it on the state and reduce our salary. The state will spend more money than what they are spending on MPs now. I've actually proposed that. So, but the point that it is given to you,
I thought when
then you question.
I thought when you were talking about the audit, was like it will come down.
No, when we are talking about audit,
it's just to hike it.
Not to hike it. We will do what the audit will say.
Okay, but Dr. Nyikal, if I may just remind you as well, we had the district officers. You have these posh cars that you have, the Prados, and you're talking about the Lexus, some of you, V8s. The district officers, they just used the Land Rovers.
Yes.
And not just a moment, and they were very effective. Yeah? So you can have your car grants, you buy your own car, but why can't we go back to the Land Rovers? They were very effective. I think they're not as cushy and as comfortable as, of course, the V8s, but they delivered.
Okay, let me tell you. Let me tell you another truth.
About the fuel efficiency.
Let me tell you another truth. Let me tell you another truth. All those Prados, all those V8s, they are second hand. He will tell you.
Yes. But yes,
that is why you can buy them. Now, right now, I want to talk of the sub-county commissioner, the deputy.
Okay, can I get
no, let me get to that. I don't want to leave this. They actually get brand new double cabin pickups. That is what has replaced the Land Rovers. Go now, the bar, and ask of the price of a brand new 3000cc diesel double cabin. It costing more than what the MPs are getting. Then we go and buy second-hand Prados. They are shiny, but actually the money you spent on less than what the sub-county commissioner has been spent on. That is the truth.
yeah.
Those flashy cars, they are not new.
They're just
Most of them.
they're refurbished.
They are refurbished.
Some of them.
So I agree with you that, but then it looks posh, and I think we must. One day I said the way we carry ourselves is also a problem, because we actually carry ourselves as very wealthy, posh people. Just lose the seat, and suddenly the reality strikes. So that's why I'm saying, like for drivers. Most weekends you will find me driving on my own. Evenings I'm driving. Like now I came on my own. We are just as simple as that. But what people see, or maybe say what we expose, may be the problem. But the reality is, if we don't it, you would add them more money.
And I think that's the way to go, to be as simple as Dr. Nyikal. Not to have two bodyguards. I think simplicity at the end of the day is what it's really called for. Servant leadership.
Let me say.
Yeah, so if you make comparison also on some of these government offices that we need to be in comparison or at par with the PS, what is doing, you are a servant. Yeah, wewe ni mtumishi wa watu. Yeah. At the end of the day, so at least we should look at it from that.
Let me just the last one.
No. I have to bat it. No.
When you come to my house in the morning and you go to a piece's house in the morning in the rural areas, you will see the difference. Mine is full.
Yes.
This is just him and his wife and the two good friends. And they're all taking tea.
Let me say this. Let me say this. The whole issue of a member of parliament. One day I hosted a friend of mine from South Africa, and he wrote on Twitter what a Kenyan MP gets, and it really went viral. But you see now in South Africa, members of parliament are elected through the party list.
Yeah. It went viral. Why?
Because
they were astounded on how much.
Yeah, they were astounded. But you see, a member of parliament in South Africa is elected on the party list. It's a party that submits the lists. So there is no direct benefit. It's not even like me who is nominated, who has been nominated.
You don't campaign for
who would want to be elected next time. You see, there is that premium. Actually, the problem of this whole issue of dependency, the bad, is because people sell you that fear that next time you need our vote. That is what actually makes this cost very high. And if we do not deal with the issue of how the cost of our politics, it is still going to be members of parliament will require more and more, because nobody has enough to feed a village. I said that last time, and I think I also saw it everywhere in the news, social media. I mean, we cannot have enough for a member of parliament. The demands are too high, and the surest way to become broke. Look at, members of parliament are good when they are in office because they get these perks to support the work they do. Remove it. What are you left with? By the time you finish your campaign, the car is even finished. That same car you're talking about, after 4 years, what is it remaining? It's just a shell, because you have been campaigning, traversing with it all over. So I think members of parliament, much as people, I support fully. They need to be capacitated. And I think the only challenge is that the media has hyped politics. I think politics is overrated. If you have a political office, then you look like you have made it in life because you're always in the news. People confuse singers on TV for money, and then you are singing in parliament, and then you are around people who look important, and then you have these flashy cars that have been manicured in Grogan. Not one that has been taken from a Toyota dealer. And then here you are, people then expect, and because also you give a 200 shillings there, another 100, another 500, whatever, then people think we have money. And money when it is stashed together like this, in change, loose money, like this, and you are giving everywhere. And that becomes the contact point. So before even somebody says hi to you, Mheshimiwa njaa, Mheshimiwa toa kitu, chai, hata haja kusalimia, that kind of behavior, it's very obnoxious, by the way. It's very repulsive because the only time that you will seem to have interest in Isaac Mwaura is when he's giving you money. And if you don't give, there is a disincentive. You are seen to be mchoyo, you don't fit to be a leader. In fact, I was having a conversation over the weekend with someone, and they were valuing their friendship based on how much one has contributed in their personal issues, either a funeral, a dowry, a wedding, whatever. And it occurred to me in our society that is actually ingrained. That is the basis, is a principle in politics. That how much you attend to other people's, social functions is reciprocal. It is expected that if you attend somebody's dowry, ceremony, they will also reciprocate when your son is getting married. And how much you contributed then will also be in equal measure, if not more, you expect that they will give you. Now, that is also what is translated into politics. If that then becomes a yardstick at the bar, then it's seriously a commercial venture. And where are we getting the money? From the center. But I still feel the media has made a member of parliament the poster boy for salary increment. And one would argue from a HR point of view, the issue of signaling, that if you give this to members of parliament, then it cascades down the line. But it's actually the other way around. People hide under the pretext that MPs earn more to really, divert attention to what they actually get as state officers. And if you can analyze properly, see, how many cars are available to a minister, for example? You are talking about 7.5 million for a member of parliament, but how many cars are available to a minister? You'll have, a Prado, you'll have another Prado, you'll have a chase car, and maybe another small car to take your children to school. How many are available for a member of parliament? So I think that is a conversation that we need to have as a country. But I don't think it is necessary. The real expenditure and where people hide money, and I still want to insist here, is huge infrastructural projects. I still want to give an example of this Nyumba ya Ghorofa, the monument of classism in Kenya, which should be open for everybody. And I propose very strongly so that we take away the class issue. Look at the Eastern Bypass. From my own conservative estimates, a whooping 7 billion has been stolen from that project. So that is how much is 7 billion compared to what salaries of MPs are getting. A whole 1 year travel budget for members of parliament is about 2 billion. So if we are looking at the wrong places, if you look at the actual infrastructure of this country, you'll save more. And I believe the Kenya Kwanza government will take time to actually look at these issues so that you save on taxpayers. But by the end of the day, the member of parliament has become a bogeyman, to accuse the country of huge cost of living. So this is like you want to say there's a direct correlation, the between cost of living and MP salaries. Actually, that's not true. I mean, many people who have been in parliament will tell you that people feel obligated to your salary. In fact, they feel entitled. Just yesterday, somebody was trying to entice me to go back to the ground, with the promise of 2027 that there are some elderly people that we are going to feed over the weekend. I told him, my friend, let the area member of parliament deal with that. Those are the issues. Those are the things. Those are the issues that nobody will ever account for salary. Because it's not my job, and that is how you win votes. Yes, but if you look at those things you do, eventually they really count for very little in terms of, I mean, how many votes you end up getting. So, in short, what I'm trying to say at the bar is that we have overrated the salary of a member of parliament. It has been over-discussed, and it will never see light of day. I think the SRC needs to restructure the Gazette notice. Yeah, I mean, on the matters of sitting allowance, I see you don't seem to agree with me, but let me say that.
We are the people who know. And wanasema mwambia ngoma uvutia kwake.
There's no inciting ngoma uvutia kwake.
Okay. But we need to maybe, Kipruto, on the issue of the largesse. The extravagance, the opulence that we have in these offices as well. You see the chess cars that he's talking about, not only just from Mwashimuas, but from the government officials.
Yeah.
How then can Kenya Kwanza come up with sort of a very good policy intervention to try and tame down on the wage bill, first of all, and expense within government? We're talking about the landscapes. Even you can see some of this money that really goes to landscapes and flowers and tea in the office is exorbitant completely, right? Even in some of the offices nowadays, you getting a cup of tea, that is a luxury. Yeah, you are advised to come with your own, a flask and carry your own tea at the end of the day, because people are really paring down on expenses. And it's not just a reality that here is in the country, even in the UK. Even in America, people now are paring down. But it's only in this country where we don't seem to really get that particular pinch, especially from that particular, I don't know, middle class and going up, but people are really suffering. And this should be also reflective from the government offices at the end of the day. Yeah. First, the staff auditing. Secondly, in some of these issues that we don't have to get fresh flowers. No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy the flowers, but you can also use the artificial flowers at the end of the day if you want, some good ergonomics for your office.
Yeah, when I was referring to auditing, it is really not to justify certain expenses. It is for us to rationalize those expenses and also rationalize the positions that we give. In human resource, what you do is you identify what are the skills required. Who are the people who have those requisite skills that can perform the job?
The skill sets,
so that you reduce, instead of 3 people doing the same job, you can reduce to 1 person doing 3 jobs or 3 different activities. For example, when you go to a place like my home, Kaplamai, we have an MCA, we have a chief, we have ward administrator. The definition and their roles, one could be said to be representing, one is dealing with security, one is dealing with administration. But if you are to rationalize, you may need just to have an MCA and perhaps a ward administrator or a chief.
Indeed.
So that you reduce, instead of 3 people in the same area, you reduce to 1 or 2 people, and so forth, and in so many other places. So that first you define the job. Which job do you want to be done for Kenya? And after you've defined the job, you say now, who are the people with these skills? You will realize if you are to do proper analysis, you do not need as many people as the ones you're saying. People will say, okay, it's about employment. No, employment must be done in a way that everybody feels useful. That like now we come to the studio, you don't need 10 anchors. You're anchoring the whole issue, and the debate is going on well. We need just 1 person who is able to multitask, to be able to balance between various components of this kind of studio, and we achieve. Then the other people can be released to do other things. You know, the problem is we think of positions like the county government as employment bureau. If those people were not employed by county government, they will be employed elsewhere if we are able to define the roles of various individuals in our society. Now, my advice to Kenya Kwanza or any other administration in future is that let us do an audit of the things that ought to be done by Kenyans and for Kenya to move forward. Otherwise, we are pretending we do not have enough resources now and even in future, unless we rationalize the people we employ.
So we need to rationalize also, because we've had, you know, pronouncements that even the CSs now that had been declared illegal, unconstitutional by the courts, that will have legislation to try and shake it into place so that at least they're legally. Do we need them? Nikal, do we need the CSs?
Let me, on that particular one, the answer is actually no. Let me be honest.
We don't need
because them. Actually, they are, in my mind, the replacement of assistant ministers in the past. And even assistant ministers, because I knew I was in the executive, even the assistant ministers, you really as a PS are to ensure that you actually get them work to do. But remember that positions...
Because they don't have work to do.
They really didn't. You could do without...
So you delegate from your office as a PS some of your work to the assistant?
No, you delegate from the minister.
From the minister?
You have to put him in trouble. So now I can't tell for you. But we delegated from the minister. And actually the ministers liked it because if they were too busy, then you would have the assistant minister to do some of the things. But you would do without them. And even the CS, you can do without them. But look at how they have come in and who have held the post. Let's be honest. Sometimes in politics, there is political balancing. When people campaign for a leader, they all have different visions. They have different objectives. You may think all are campaigning, we want a good government, we want change. That's not really, there may be just a few people who are doing that. Other people are saying, we've worked for this government, what is in it for me? They still need to be politically active in supporting you. They're not going to support the government or the president while they're actually out in the cold, so to speak. So, and then you realize that sometimes if you don't take care of that, it actually brings political malcontent even within your party. We worked for you. So sometimes the positions are created so that people are appeased or they get to be active. They're not just appeased, but when they are there, they're getting something to do, and it brings political harmony. What I don't know, where is the balance? If you actually left very many people out and they're discontented and they're causing issues, and or if you brought them in and it was some cost, it may be possible that harmony you get is worth the money you are putting in, even for the bigger picture of peace in the whole political establishment and the whole country. So that may be a reason you have to consider. The same thing will apply for employment. Waziri Kirwa said that some people look at the county position, county government as employment bureaus. Actually, that's a reality. Our unemployment, the way sometimes you have addressed it, we have employed people because they need an income, not because there was a job to be done.
Yeah.
And that is, you will find that everywhere. We must be innovative to the extent that we generate things to be done so that when people are employed, they are productive. Now, even in construction, I want you to look at something from today. When you pass along the road, particularly road repairs, or people along the road who are cutting bushes, clearing the roadsides, see the number of people you find there standing and the number of people who are actually doing work and holding something. If there are 10, only 3 at one particular instant will be working. You then realize that the other people are actually getting paid because they need to have some income. I'll give you an example. When I was director of medical services, it shocked me. I went to a health center, not a dispensary, and there were no nurses, literally none. But there were many cleaners, and the place was clean, but nobody was being treated. So I asked, it was being run by local authorities, say, what is the point? We have to dismiss many of these cleaners, and even if we employ 2 nurses, having dismissed 20, it will be more useful. You know what the person told me? But you know, these are my voters.
The voters.
These are my voters.
Yeah.
So that also is an element. So I think there we can also have to look how we can get some savings. I agree with you that even in offices, I've held those offices. I think you can reduce the cost around the office and make it minimal. Even the furniture. Sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes you find that new people come and change furniture just because they have come. And you look at it and say, these furnitures are still okay. What does Waziri want a new set? But then you go ahead and buy them. So there is room. I don't want that one. I must agree. There is room.
You heard of also, Waziri wanted to make up room for herself in some of those offices. Okay. You know, some of extravagance that just talk about.
No, I think when it comes out like that, it doesn't look right. If you call it a makeup, if you call it a makeup, then it conjures another thing. But really, those people, there are some things they'll need. They'll not be expensive or luxurious as you are saying. But for a lady, even you, madam, if you go to your bathroom, there are things that are there because of her. And ladies do make themselves up. Even so that the bathroom that they use should at least have a mirror, and even a comb, and even something to wipe the face.
A blow dryer.
Yes, a blow dryer. Probably that is going a bit too far. But again, when a minister comes, they must look groomed. So those are small things, but they don't have to be as expensive as sometimes I've seen them. The needs are there, but they get exaggerated. So that even, let's say, like you find that there's a toilet which the minister uses next to their office. Actually, I used to say, what is this for? Even as a peer, I said, do I need this? But sooner or later I realized, if you have a meeting, and you have very many meetings in a row, you can't keep pacing up the corridor, up and down, up and down, up and down. Sometimes you want to finish that meeting, just go and wash your face, look in the mirror how you look, comb your hair, sit down for the next meeting. They may be too, we may exaggerate them, and need may be exaggerated, but we can cut on the cost and still meet the people's needs. Flowers, I think by the time I was a PS, we had decided there was no need for flowers. Tea, you know, whatever. Actually, I was brand new, and you come with this thing. I actually counted the number of cups we use. That just let's estimate in this office that all of us, if we use this moment, we drink so many cups of tea, so much sugar. Surely it can't cost what I'm seeing. Those are things you can work on. Even the cost of the milk, the taking tea. I mean, when I was a PS, I was shocked when they're bringing me the guy who was going to supply her, and you know they were bidding for the supply, and the packet of milk was, I think, 120. That time, you know the person I called my wife, how much do you buy milk? It's only 35 shillings. What is this? So they are actually expenses.
And the mandazi is more expensive.
So I agree with you.
Yes.
It's not just the Kenya Kwanza government. Any government, there is room to cut down on expenditure in government. And that goes to what I was saying. When we're looking at the debts, it's come from the budget deficits. So one of the areas of decreasing the budget deficits is reducing government expenditure.
Yeah.
So that, in principle, are things that they should and must, and we, in the position we are in now, we are going to insist they do them.
Right. I know Honorable Maura maybe didn't want to hear about the slashing of CSS, you know.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right now we're waiting for appointments to be happening after the president gives his speech on Thursday.
Yes.
And so it could be up on the list, the CSS, anything could happen. Well, chair of a board, so
the CAS is a position of a deputy minister, really.
Yeah.
And the Public Service Commission has advertised for people to give views. Certainly, Professor Nyikal can actually give them, but I actually think they are important because Kenya Kwanza intends to change the standing orders, to have the ministers and deputy ministers, in this case CSS, to go and answer questions directly to Parliament because of the misnomer that chairmen of committees are the ones who respond to their fellow members of Parliament when it comes to questions. So I think one of the things that is critical for Cabinet Secretary is that, of course, there are also a flurry of many activities we are supposed to go and officiate. Then there is the issue of CSS having very clear mandates. For example, in a ministry, you'll have various state departments. So you'll have more than one PS nowadays, maybe 2 or 3. Then it will be important for our CAS to be given a mandate so that your work is to help in that state department, so that you assist the minister to superintend over those matters. I had a conversation with a former CAS, and he gave me a harrowing experience how when they were appointed, the CSS thought that these are people who are going to replace them anyway. So there is that competition, and but then with the kind of description that I've seen advertised by the Public Service Commission, then that position is going to be more succinct. And it's very fit, by the way, for former MPs and senators, because it's supposed to liaise between the executive, the National Assembly, the Senate, and county governments for areas of concurrence and what have you. I think Kenya should take time to read through those positions. Of course, one would argue and say, oh, yeah, this is for people who did not make it politically and what have you. But I think if we have to increase accountability and transparency, it is important. Now, for a National Assembly that has got, is it 40 committees now, each having 15 members, I even propose that there is now agency for a second chamber of the National Assembly. Because the throughput from these 40 committees would make the passage of any form of legislation very cumbersome, especially because we have a bicameral system. Even when there is the practice of what I call bicameral unicameralism, where the executive would prefer to work more with the National Assembly than the Senate, and in the event, of course, going by the rulings of both the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and I think that matter is being contested by the Senate. They may be going to the Supreme Court if not gone already. You need a functional National Assembly. You need a functional Senate. And so I don't know whether you are getting my point, but I'm trying to say there is actually a role for CSS, in my opinion. They play a very integral role so that you don't have a purely technocratic government in the executive and a National Assembly and the Senate that is speaking to itself. Sometimes when we have been in those chambers, you wonder whether people just listen to debate for entertainment or whether it has got a value in terms of implementation. One of the most useless committees of both houses is the Committee on Implementation. I think the Senate decided not even to have one because most of the resolutions of Parliament never see light of day, like motions. They are persuasive in nature. So I believe if that can be institutionalized and it doesn't become another reward for tokenism, it will help in the wider scheme of things, because at independence we have parliamentary secretaries. They are basically the assistant ministers. Then in the French system they are called députés. It's like a deputy. It's basically that. But then what happens is that it was abused around the KANU time when you had President Moi having 75 assistant ministers, so that all of the backbenchers were assistant minister. And I remember when I joined politics, because it was at the tail end of that, people would start and say, my name is MP for this, and assistant, people would not even listen because there were too many assistant ministers. So it should be capped, of course. I don't think there should be more than the current number, but they should be properly and clearly delineated so that the Kenyans can see value for that. The current ones, of course, have had problems, of course, because that position was declared unconstitutional. But if it's properly regularized and there is also a program for them of what they're supposed to do, then they would be useful. But also, having said that, I really want to ask ourselves a question as a country, whether the work that is done by Parliament, does it necessarily translate into value for Kenyans, value for money, value for representation? And I'm saying this because I don't think, dovetailing to what we were discussing before the bar, I don't think there is any person who elected Dr. Nyikal in Seme to go and make laws. I don't think so. I don't think that was the back of the mind of many of the voters. So we have to really ask ourselves, with the absence of CDF, does that really, capture, encapsulate the aspirations of Kenyans when they elected these legislators into Parliament? So it's a conversation we need to have going forward.
But has the CDF also made the legislators lazy?
No, I don't think so. It has enhanced their role.
If we may just hark back to Kirwa's, that epic of time when we didn't have a CDF, you really had to push in Parliament. You really had to debate very hard also for you to actually get your constituency the need to be assessed on the floor of the House.
I don't think the presence of CDF has watered down debate. It's just the quality of legislators.
No, not even the debate.
Who are being elected, who are businessmen, who are people who
how would you explain that we have some parts of the country getting more developed than others?
No, CDF is an equalizer. With the absence of that, then the one who is in State House will dictate where you get more money.
That's what I'm saying. How then did it work out when we didn't have CDF?
That's when everybody wanted to become president. That's why, devolution and CDF have actually equalized things in this country. I want to hear from
but devolution should just be sufficient.
But CDF is very important. Yeah. I support it 101%.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa?
Yeah, there are three issues here. One is the issue of assistant ministers, CAS, or whatever name you want to give them. I think a balance must be struck so that we do not overpopulate the government with people.
Good, but you're first of the view that he should be scrapped.
Who?
You.
No.
I just want to get where do you stand on the CSS?
On the issue of CSS, let us, I like rationalizing things. Let us justify why do
dry.
Yes, because what is the old example? Which example have we borrowed? Is the idea of not having them innovative. During our tenure with the Kibaki one, each assistant minister was given designation. For example, at Kembe Gitura was in charge of land development and regulatory services, and Chalo Kaindi was in charge of research and extension. So that any policy document, before it comes to me, I mark it to them, or to each of them, dealing with that specific area. And it was harmonious, to the best of my knowledge, because every Tuesday we used to have a meeting of the Big Five, the peers, the two assistant ministers, and the director of agriculture, and I as the chair of the meeting. So that we say these questions will be answered by so and so. There is a trip to Rome, there is a trip to London, there is a field day in Garissa, there is another field day in Siaya. Those things we used to do every Tuesday. And for me, they made my work easy. And that's perhaps why my ministry was #1 in the first performance contracting. It's not because of me. It's because of this team of people around the minister and the officers in my ministry. So we can give justification, but my worry is what is the number? We should not really crowd them the way Dr. Nyikal was saying. Out of 10 people, only 3 are the ones slashing around the road. Now, the second issue is CDF. CDF, in my opinion, is something so useful. I did not benefit the full extent of CDF because it was towards the tail end of my term as a member of parliament that CDF started with 6 million. By the time I left the ministry, the parliament, it was about 37 million per year. But now I hear it's about 128 million. Now, for the 20 years I served as a member of parliament, the 15 years before, there is less than 10 million that came to my constituency from the government, directly to the constituency. But for the 5 years I served, we had more than 50 million or 100 million coming to my constituency. My worry is still the same thing. Are we able to say, is this money serving the effective purpose? Now, starting with what is the quality of projects? We have so many TVETs. We are producing technicians, masons, carpenters. Are we using these people so that a CDA project in Seme, a classroom, will not cost more than another one in Unguja or in Migori? We standardize these projects and we have value for money. And we reduce the cost of the administration. We improve on the cost of the money getting to the projects itself. CDF for me is something we should do. Now, how is it going to be midwifed? That is the main question. Is it going to be ring-fenced that this is money for SEME, but there is a voice from the area member of parliament, but now this money will be handled by some kind of leadership within the county? You know, these are some of the questions that we need to engage in. Otherwise, saying we do away with CDF, we are retrogressing. Whether people have been stealing or they have been using it for the right purpose, that money has made a lot of difference.
Thank you. All right, we want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, there is a very interesting editorial cartoon today also in the Daily Nation where Victor has drawn this, and it's all about Rigathi Gachagua and President Ruto. While he was at the United Nations General Assembly, he spoke quite movingly on the reality of climate change and what is happening right now. And here at home on Saturday, we had the Deputy President making pronouncements that we should go back to the Shamba system. And this is what has been drawn there, you can see. Let's farm in forests. We look at this because right now, as soon as he had made this particular pronouncement, we have already people who are settling in Mau Forest as it stands. Maybe they didn't hear the latter bit of it where he said, awaiting directive, of course, and a cabinet